Hello! Welcome to Essay Nights, the Essay Slayers. My name is Julie and I will be your instructor as we read through Determination of Ka for a Week ACT essay. The article source is embedded in the video description below. Feel free to read along. Please note that you can get a custom, plagiarism-free essay for as little as $10 a page at Essay Nights. The link is in the description. Introduction. In the experiment performed, the objective is to titrate a weak acid with a strong base. In a titration of a weak acid with a strong base, the titrant is a strong base and the analyte is a weak acid. The reaction that will occur is the direct transfer of protons from the weak acid to the hydroxide ion. The data gathered will be represented on the titration curve, a graph of the volume of titrant being the strong base plotted against the pH. The pH is an indicator of an acid strength. The titration curve can be used to determine the pK. By reading the graph, the equivalence point can be found, which is the point where equal parts acid and base have reacted. By knowing this, the half equivalence can be found. pH equals pK. Procedure. In the experiment, pH paper will be used instead of a pH meter. The pH will be determined at the beginning and the end of the titration, and the data table will be used to calculate the intermediate values. A burette is a more accurate piece of glassware used to deliver the titrate. In the lab being performed, disposable pipette will be used, making it very important to consistently dispense the same size drops. Before the titration, the volume of a drop must be determined. A pipette is completely filled with distilled water. The average number of drops in a milliliter and the average quantity of a milliliter represented by one drop is calculated and recorded. Water is added drop by drop to a graduated cylinder from a pipette at the first, second and third ml lines. The water drops are recorded. The average number of drops are calculated per ml. The average of the quantity of a milliliter represented by a drop is also recorded. A data table is set up to represent the trail averages. First, 2.0 milliliters of unknown acid is measured into graduated cylinder and then poured into a beaker. The volume is recorded. By using a toothpick, a drop of acid is placed onto low portion of pH paper. The pH level is recorded. 1 drop of the phenolphthalein indicator is added to the acid and the color is recorded. The beaker is set on a white sheet of paper before moving on. Next, a well in the 24-well plate is filled with NaOH solution and then sucked up into an empty pipette. The pipette is held vertically, slowly adding drop by drop the NaOH into the beaker of the unknown solution. Drops are added until a color change occurs, changing to a faint pink for at least 30 seconds. A plastic spoon is used to stir after the addition of each drop. The number of drops of NaOH is recorded and the equivalence point is now determined. A drop of the acid is now transferred by toothpick to the high-range pH indicator strip. The pH level of the acid is recorded before titration. The contents of the beaker are poured down the drain and all equipment is thoroughly cleaned. The above procedure is repeated twice more. All data is recorded to 4 decimal places for each trail on the data table. The average of the 3 trails is calculated and data is recorded. At the top of the pH column, the unknown unregistered trademark S acid, unregistered trademark S starting pH level before titration is entered. Next, the pH level of the acid after the titration, at its equivalence point, is entered at the bottom of the pH column. The appropriate pH levels for each 2-drop interval is then calculated, by subtracting the initial pH from the final pH and dividing the resulting difference by the number of rows minus 1. This number is then added to the previous pH value. A graph is then made, pH is plotted on the y-axis and volume of NaOH added on the x-axis. This represents the titration curve. The pH that corresponds with the equivalence point and half equivalence points are located and the pK is determined for the unknown acid. pH equals pK. The Ka is determined by taking the inverse log of the pK, 10 pKa. Thank you for taking your time to listen to me. I hope you enjoyed learning about determination of Ka for a week ACT essay as much as I did. Kindly remember that you can get a custom, plagiarism-free essay at Essay Nights for as little as $10. The link is in the description. See you next time.